guess that is a good time to pivot down to like potential solutions. Obviously, the war is still going on, and who knows how much longer it will go on. But in terms of just the conflict itself, and the way that Jews look at Arabs and Arabs look at Jews, and like this kind of resentment and like tension that we have that is in the region they have with one another. What like possible solutions are there to sort of diffuse it?
What we're talking about right now, and I'd love, Ibrahim, if this can be like a three discussion. When we talk about solutions, we talk about short-term and long-term solutions, like what's going to happen right now. And the same way we can't let what happened on 7th of October repeat itself in any capacity.
Yeah.
We also can't go back to the 6th of October. We can't. We can't, because it has shown us. Yeah, it has shown us to be unsustainable. It has shown us to bring more bloodshed. And we the same way we can't go back to the 7th of October, we definitely cannot go back to the 6th of October. I feel like when it comes to steps on what to be done, we obviously need the return of all the hostages. We need a ceasefire, but we deserve more than a ceasefire. We deserve actual solutions, because we had a ceasefire in 2021. We had a ceasefire in, correct me if my dates are wrong, in 2014, and before that, and before that. And we deserve more than a ceasefire. And I think it's very complicated, because a lot of things are at play. I think I agree with Ibrahim when he said there's a sense of vengeance. There's not just a sense of vengeance. There's a sense of redeeming Israel's image, both internationally and amongst its own people, of the embarrassment that happened on the 7th of October, of how Israel, that is always security, increased taxes because of security, the Iron Dome, blah, 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 and the breach that happened, and to the extent that it happened. So it's not only vengeance, it's also like Israel redeeming itself. So we need to think about that as well. And we need to think about literal things, like we're going to have to rebuild Gaza. Where are the people going to go while we rebuild it? And that's even before we ask who is going to be responsible for rebuilding it. So there's a lot of things to play, and that's only the short term. Ibrahim, what do you think?
I mean, in terms of I would say the solution to this situation, like you said about the sense of urgency that we need to put an end to the entire conflict, I think it needs to come from that. And it needs to come from 3 different ways in order to actually succeed. It needs to come from a push from the international community. It needs to come from a push from the Israeli population with a change of government. Because the truth of the fact in the matter is that, voted for a government that maintained that status quo. It, for years, maintained and strengthened Hamas and gave it money in order to maintain that Palestinian friction and weaken the Palestinian Authority. And that way you're always eliminating a prospect for peace, because there is a terrorist organization that exists and the Palestinian Authority is weak. And it's something that you're contributing to on your own. And we need, as the people here, we need to make a stop to that. We need to choose different. And we need to choose a government that will give something different. At the same time, the Palestinian people in the West Bank in particular need to also choose different and be able to choose different in terms of bringing a new voice to a Palestinian leadership. But that also needs the support of the international community, because the international community has also been on the same side, but both supportive, both maintaining the Israeli situation in the settlements, but both in the same token maintaining support for the Palestinian Authority, that it's corrupt, that it's not supporting its people, that it's even eliminating young Palestinian voices that are going against the corruption. And there needs to be a demand to change and to call for real elections. and that has never happened since the change in the Palestinian Authority in the last election, 2006. And you cannot give that, unlimited support without any checks and without any real demands in order to make the situation better, and just let the people do their own, because the power and the corrupt are also taking us nowhere that we're looking for, and we need that also opportunity to determine our own lives. So that also needs to change, and the choice should be for a young Palestinian leadership that wants to just end this conflict, and that's the hope. That's because both people want to self-determine, the Jewish people and the Palestinians, and in one way or another, we need to look for ways that both are able to do that, and it should not be looking at the situation as if you are losing to the other side. It is making concessions and accepting the existence of the other. And it's not about 100 meter here and 100 meter there. All the land can be discussed and can be, articulated in one way or another. There were plans in the past. It's not like it's something that doesn't exist. We just need to implement it. That's all.
Yeah, I would add is that we need to, like, the events, and I even don't like calling them events, but like the horrible things that we were seeing from since the 7th of October until now, whether that's deaths on the Israeli or the Palestinian side, needs to be like a slap on the face. That's like a slap on the face. Needs to be a slap on the face on both Israelis and Palestinians, for both of us to understand that these, like, we were dying for a reason. We're choosing to continue this way. We're actively choosing to continue the bloodshed, to continue the cycle of violence and the cycle of trauma, and we need to choose differently. We need to choose to highlight and honor the suffering and agony of our ancestors. However, learn from that in order to ensure the safety and security and prosper of the future generation. That's what we need to think about. We need to drop the idea of a full Israel. We need to drop the idea of a full Palestine.
Yeah.
No matter how much we want it. I would love to live in a one-state solution on paper. I'm sure Ibrahim would as well. A one state where everyone has access to holy sites. There's no borders. Like shared everything. On paper, that looks amazing, but come and implement it. Exactly.
How?
So if we want to, at the very least, aspire to something that looks like a one-state solution, or some sort of federation or relations between Israel and Palestine, we need to start with the two-state solution. We need to start that way. And if you ask me, and I talk about it a lot actually in our podcast, which is that what Ibrahim said, that we need to, Israelis and Palestinians need to decide what they want. Like, do they want to be stubborn and I'm simplifying this, do they want to be stubborn and continue suffering and trade in security for that? And the Palestinians, do they, and I love how Ibrahim put this, like, for the Palestinians, every time we continue this cycle of violence and this way of retaining the Palestinian state, we have lost two things: land and rights. And I'm quoting Ibrahim completely. And we need to decide as a collective that we're done, that it's enough. Enough is enough. For me, part of the reason why I'm in the peace building community, or why I'm an activist, is because I have a little sister. My sister is 11 years old, and I remember once like hearing of a stabbing in East Jerusalem by a 13-year-old.
Wow.
And after that 13-year-old committed that attack, she went back to school in the morning. She did it, and then she went back to school. And I was like, and that school was like in our community, like it was walking distance from my house. That, like, I was like, we can't continue like that. We can't continue that, not just for us, but for our siblings, for our children, for the day after that we keep on talking about. We need to put into the work. We need what's it called? To take accountability and to acknowledge the situation that we're in. What I mean by that is acknowledge each other's existence. Both Israel acknowledging the existence of Palestine, inshallah, like please, and the Palestinians as well. Because I think we're playing this idiot game. And as for the international community, I think when we say international community, we specify that we mean the West and we mean the Middle East and North Africa region as well.
Mhm.
They have big leverage, big leverage in this. And I think that the West specifically should stop telling us what we should do and what we need, because we know that best. Like, we're living it, we're experiencing it, and if something goes wrong, we suffer the consequences, not anyone in the West. So we'd love the support, the investment, and the passion that the West has for the Palestinian-Israeli cause. It's really heartwarming, especially as a Palestinian, to see all this solidarity. But don't tell us what we need. We know what we need. We know, like, we're living it. Help us come together. Help us, actually, Palestinians and Israelis, come together in order to fix this mess.
Yeah, you mentioned existence, and I think that's like the key, is that, like, I can only speak from the Zionist side personally. From this side, it feels like I've become a liberal Zionist, which I'm not, which I'm fine to be, because I think Palestinians are people, not because I'm like this like huge like advocate for Palestinians, just because I'm like, they're people in the same way that we're people. So how do we even get to that point where both sides are seeing each other as, to put it bluntly, as human beings?
We have no other choice.
No,
What's the alternative?
I agree. We have no other choice. I'm just saying, like, I'm gonna agree on that. I'm just saying,
people need to come to that realization.
Yeah.
That there is no other choice. And honestly, people not straight away after the shock of the 7th of October is still there. And I'm talking specifically about Israel. But people are starting to wake up that as a mother, so my kids are gonna go serve in Gaza. My kids, that's what's gonna happen to them. Are they not gonna come back? And then their kids and their grandkids. So people are waking up that they don't want this to continue. So I think it's not because of humanizing the other. It's for selfish reasons that you need to acknowledge the other. Yeah. It's for selfish security reasons that you need to acknowledge the other. Not like we've seen how violence, how governments have been claiming to want to achieve security for their people and wanting to achieve that through violence, and we've seen how that's failing miserably. So we need, like, that's how I think we need to get it. Like, that's the thought, because prior there is this sense of honor of serving in the military. I know it's mandatory, but there's a sense of pride and honor of, it's not just that I have to do it, but I want and I'm willing full-heartedly to do it, and it's my honor. Now that actual, like, the death toll is it 1,400 or 1,200? 1,200 on the 7th of October.
It's 12, yeah.
1,200 on the 7th of October, and in vicious, horrible ways. No one wants their children serving, and I think people are very scared. Mothers are scared for their children. So, and same on the Palestinian end. Like, even people that are saying rah resistance on the Palestinian end, not Westerners, like people that are advocating for the resistance and the muqawama, the resistance, and they're seeing what's happening in Gaza. Like, Gazans themselves, they know firsthand what this means and what it means for them to be stuck in the streets under tents, if you're lucky. if you're lucky, to stand in line to get bread and water, and you get that if you're lucky. For women not to have any pads, sanitary products, no, like I said, no water to drink, let alone wash yourself with.
Yeah.
I've been talking to my friend in Gaza. Women have been taking birth control pills in order to delay their periods. It's been
Wow.
2 months.
Yeah.
They have nothing. So, and these are things we take for granted. These are things that aren't mentioned in the news. No government official is going to talk to you. Like, people don't care. They just care about statistics and numbers.
Yeah.
But the fact on the ground is even more gruesome.
It's interesting you mentioned like kind of not wanting your kid to serve in Gaza. Last 3 summers I've been a birthright participant or like a birthright counselor, and they always bring soldiers on the trip with you. Like they get like time off, and none of them ever want to be in the military. And like and I know in like the 90s and 2000s there was a much stronger sense of like Israeli pride towards that, but they're still, even the pre-October 7th, they were so upset with the status quo of like security that they're just like, yeah, we do it because we have to do it, but we don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a mixed bag. There's that, and there's also what I mentioned, because there's a big bunch of people that I have encountered
that do or don't want to be,
that want to do it.
Yeah,
like I think it hit people in many different ways of like, this is the only Jewish nation and we need to protect it, and this is our, like, we have to do it. But before it was more of a want, like it was more of a like to protect the lineage, and it was more like of a symbolic thing.
Yeah.
But now that something actually happened on the ground to the big scale and brutal scale that it did on the 7th of October, people like every parent wants the security of, every person wants the security of themselves, first of all, and every parent wants the security of their kids.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's right. You mentioned earlier on a ceasefire, which is, I can only imagine, a very a very heavy word in Israel right now. I don't personally know how I feel about that, to be honest. Like, obviously the hostages need to come home, but ceasefire, like, I don't even know what to think. What would you say to an Israeli Jew who say, well, Hamas is still there? How can you call for a ceasefire when Hamas was not eradicated from Gaza?
I would say, and this is my opinion. I would say that you can't eradicate Hamas with force. Like, you are like, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, is fooling everyone if they think that force will eradicate Hamas. Hamas isn't just a military. It's not just a terror organization. It's an ideology that has been growing. It's like a disease that has been growing in Gaza for a very long time. And we talk about this a lot in the podcast. And when you cure a disease, you don't do it with force, because you're enforcing it more. Because the same way the people in Gaza, when they don't have any choice, when their education, their health, the way their jobs are all have to be through Hamas, and then they see a war each and every 2-3 years, they're going to be motivated, and they've lost their entire house or they've lost their entire family. They're going to be motivated to join because they have the sense of vengeance. They're going to be taught this. They're going to be taught this as young kids and proven to be right. If you ask me, the same way Hamas recruits people, these rockets just reinforce that. Like, if Hamas recruits 2 people, 2 more people are added through the rockets, because I've come to understand that Palestinians have this sense of, we have nothing to lose, and Israelis have the sense of, we've got everything to lose. So put that hand in hand. That's what we've got today.
It's a dangerous mindset.
Yeah.
Just in life, that we have nothing to lose. I think my I don't know I don't even know who said this, but somebody's like, even if you get rid of Hamas, like, what are you creating? You know, you're creating a vacuum for another group. So essentially, Hamas again.
It's a different
Yeah,
name.
that's my personal problem. And like Amira said before, there were four military operations in Gaza in 2008, 11, 14, 21, and now. So, and every time Hamas remained. So nothing really changed. And also, Netanyahu specifically said that he's not looking to put the Palestinian Authority there. So what is supposed to be there exactly?
Yeah.
That's part of the problem why there is a call for a ceasefire, because of the lack of long-term vision for what to do next. And that's part of the problem of some of the things that Amira talked about in terms of mothers sending their kids to Gaza, because the army so far is going to stay there indefinitely. And are people supposed to just go there and just be in Gaza for years to come? That's not a reality. That's not good enough for the Israeli people either. And we need to change is effectively, what's like an actual change to the situation there in terms of governance, because Hamas can be eliminated in terms of its capability to control the Gaza Strip politically and in terms of governing body, because that's what it is. It's a terror organization. It's also a governing body. It takes in all the money. It creates the jobs, schools. It provides every single element of the Gazan person life from A to Z. And it needs to be replaced with something else. And if it's going to only be replaced with a vacuum of the army being there, the ideology of Hamas will continue to exist, because you're not bringing anything else to the table.
Yeah.
And that's why a change needs to also happen in Israel, to have a government that would be also here willing to also bring in the Palestinian Authority to the table. Because if you don't want Hamas to control Gaza, you need somebody else. And we need to strengthen a Palestinian Authority that can do that. But not to just, have a short-term plan of, we need to go in, eliminate Hamas, but no long-term plan. That's the problem that we're seeing right now. And why the call for ceasefire is because of the feeling that, there are no achievements, so more to be gained. The north of Gaza is eliminated. You can effectively install the PA soon enough if you are pushing to do so, but without any plan to do anything else, it becomes just, like you said, a vacuum. And I actually saw it the other day about the U.S. and how it took it 20 years, 4 presidents to replace the Taliban with the Taliban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's an example.
So we can't have that reality in Gaza either. It needs to be a different method. And here, the U.S., with the biggest and strongest army in the world, you can't eliminate an ideology only by force.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
I'll add to that give the Palestinians a reason to get rid of Hamas. If Israel is just coming and is like, I don't like this organization because it hurts me, give the Palestinians an advantage of, if you get rid of Hamas or if you get rid of armed groups, this is what you'll get. You'll get a state. We'll remove this settlement. We'll something. But just if Palestinians are expected to just go against Hamas, which is something extremely difficult to for someone in Gaza to do, because it threatens their own lives. Why are they going to do that?
Yeah.
Give them a reason to actually unite against Hamas, whether that be a state, like I said, whether that be withdrawal from settlements, whether that be like some sort of an advantage. But without that,
of a partner.
yeah. a feeling of a partner, not a feeling of an oppressor that wants you to stop, that just wants to stop hurting and wants to continue the status quo for the other. It's not like this. Also, the mentality of we like Ibrahim said, great, like what the oppressor methods. Talk to them like a partner. That's something that has not been done in years.
No, but it also feels like, in terms of the PA and the Israeli government, like they don't even want peace, because it looks like I don't know if you know who Rudy Rochman is, but he's so I had him on this podcast, like maybe it's been a while, like 2 years, and he always talks about like how Israeli prime ministers run on, or prime minister, like the candidates always run on security. So it's like, if peace doesn't help their platform, it doesn't help them win elections. It makes it harder. So the conflict directly benefits them.
Yeah, both as election wise, money wise. Israel is always under threat and Palestine is always occupied. So this maintenance of we need help because, or this is our cause, needs to stay for them to stay in power. Because if that rhetoric is gone, then why do we need them? You know?
Yeah.
So I agree with that point, both parts, and we talk about it a lot in episode 3 on how the two-state solution turned basically into a two-state delusion because of the people in power.
I feel like I would be remiss in not talking with America and kind of the role America has played and continues to play in this region, because from my eyes, it doesn't look like they're really helping. I mean, they maybe they want to. You could argue, but like, you know, I don't know. Remember what episode you mentioned? Like the election in Gaza in 2005 or 2006. And it's like everybody in the region knew that was a bad idea, but America thought, like in its Western mindset, like we're gonna put Western philosophies to a region that isn't the West. So basically, that's just my long-winded way of saying, like, has America overall been helpful, hurtful? Like what are your thoughts on America in this process? They do need to continue to be in it, but you know, overall, what are your thoughts?
I'll comment shortly, and then I'll pass it to the actual analyst in this chat.
Sure.
I'll say my thoughts through my own experience so far. What we've seen from the United States recently with the funding basically of this war is like there's no way to describe it. It's like, why? Even as American citizens, like, why are we funding wars in the world?
That is a thought process here.
There's obviously, like, you can't convince me, and this is a simple thought, you can't convince me that any country in this world does a political move without ensuring something enters its pockets. There is no way that this funding of this war isn't of the United States benefit. And same applies for the entire region when it comes to their acts and intentions towards the current war. As for the capacity of engagements here in the peace building community, when it comes in regards to grants and stuff, I think as a Palestinian and as an Israeli, I'm extremely grateful for the amount of money that has been poured into the peace building process. However, it's always like comes with a booklet of here's the money, here's how you spend it.
Yeah.
So that's my problem. We don't come from same communities. We don't come from the same culture. This is the same reason why the elections didn't work, because the same way we said, or in a similar analogy of how Hamas is an ideology, democracy is an ideology.
Sure.
It's not a state of governance. It's something that needs to be inserted into the people before it is used as a way of governance. So that's my take on it. I think can the US help? Definitely. Is it? I don't think so. Ibrahim?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I guess the US, I mean, it's the problem is that it has a very, I would say, inconsistent foreign policy in terms of the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Different presidents come and go, and each one has a different view, and they portray it in a different way. And that's creating, instability here in terms of how the conflict is approached. And the U.S. has been, sort of like you said, like it was pushing for elections in the Palestinian Authority. It has support to the Palestinian Authority, knowingly the corruption there. It continues, its support unconditional to Israel without, and overlooking what's happening in the settlements and increasing the problem, making an actual factual line exist on a 67 border and all these things. Like, it's seeing it happen and not doing anything about these things. So they're in a lot of, in one side, it's like supporting and helping in a lot of the peace initiatives and work, like Amira said, but there are good intentions. The U.S. is helping people getting out of Gaza, but it's taking a lot of time. But it is doing it while others are not. But there is always these, challenges that we see that is not seen in the American eye in terms of, how to work on the conflict. It needs, it should be a mediator, not to dictate how the situation should happen, but it can put, red lines on both sides and put both sides into the discussion table, which it has not. It has the capability to do so, but it has not. And that's an American responsibility.
Yeah. I feel like the problem is inherently deeper, honestly, though, because I feel like in regards to, I think this is just what happens when you give so much money. So, like, they give so much money to Israel, and that means that Israel has to bend to their will at times, which directly breaks from their own agenda. So I mean, if you have like this big in this case, not my case, but in your case, foreign superpower, America, giving such large amounts of money, like,
it's leverage.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a massive leverage.
It's a leverage, but to tell you the truth, there is, especially in the past few years, Netanyahu is feeling that he's strong enough to stand to the U.S. When the U.S. criticized the judicial overhaul, it pushed and pushed to try to halt it, but it was mainly the Israeli public that halted the judicial overhaul. Voices within the government were saying the U.S. needs to mind its own business on internal policies. And we started to hear these things happen, coming out in this particular government and a bit in the Netanyahu era. So that's a little bit also problematic in terms of the relationship. There is a sense within the some factions in the Israeli government that they can stand to the U.S. and do what they think is right for Israel no matter what. And that's where the U.S. needs to put its foot down. And it has not. Same with the PA. It needs to put its foot down on a lot of things. Because unconditional support doesn't help to either side. There needs to be accountability and a direction to push forward an agenda. And not having a direct one is part of the American fault in influencing this conflict in a better way.
Oh, absolutely. I guess on the note of the international community, you two will probably have different opinions on this question, but I'll ask you anyway. What is the Arab world's responsibility in terms of the conflict overall, but also what's happening right now in this war?
I mean, first we have the countries that have made relations with Israel in the past few years that should have more responsibility in terms of influencing the situation, not just now, but overall. And there is a responsibility on the Egyptian side in terms of having relations with Israel and also being on the border.
Yeah.
And ensuring the safety of Gazans that are trying to seek refuge in Sinai. And we haven't seen enough of that. And there needs to be more responsibility and accountability on their side. And also to push, to let in more humanitarian aid. There's not enough going in. A lot of it is stuck on the border. And there needs to be more push from the Egyptians, from the rest of the Arab world also, to push as much as possible inside. We need that voice to come from the Arab world. In terms of the conflict overall, I think the Arab world has been very, in a generic terms, in terms of the peoplehood level, is very pro-Palestinian, obviously, as part of the Arab world. But there is a sense of also, like, it needs to also understand that we need to dictate what we want in terms of what we think is the best for our people, and not to egg us on for a one-sided solution of war. If we the people are choosing otherwise, we need their support, because we need to ensure our better lives, and not to continue in the conflict and the war. And we need their support as well. And then with mutual recognition, the whole region can have a better life, because of the complication of the conflict, and even the geographic location of the state, and all of these things. It can ensure a much better life for everyone, and everyone needs to see that, and it should come from us, honestly. And we need their support as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Arab world plays a big role. I think it should be more front and center than the States and the Western world, actually, because there's a similar language, there's a similar culture, there's a similar, not only through Palestinians and the Middle East and North Africa region, but there's also Middle Eastern Jews that have ties to the Middle East and North Africa region. Part of the reason why Morocco and Israel are, I don't want to say were, let's stay optimistic and say are on the path of flourishing, is because of the shared history, heritage and the Jewish communities that are in Morocco. Also, but slightly less in Bahrain, and the maintenance and of the current Jewish community in the UAE, with the establishment of the Abrahamic house in the UAE, which is like a mosque, a synagogue, and a church. I think with those there needs to be a sense of leverage and accountability from the, if not historical, of their like I agree with everything that Ibrahim said, with Egypt being on the border, historical events with Jordan and other regions. They need to, like, they have footprints on this conflict, and they can't like, there should be, in the name of like the Arabs or the Arab world and the Muslim world, there should be accountability held. And when it comes to ties with Israel, I wish that the Palestinians and Palestine was on the table when these accords were signed, were there, or at least given the opportunity to say that they don't want in. Why, if the Palestinian cause is that important, why isn't it one of the red lines, let's say? I feel like they can do more than what they're doing. But then again, we go to the point of no country moves without ensuring 100% of what it can ensure inside of its pockets, and maintenance of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict benefits countries, unfortunately. So I think that we need all the help that we can get. However, we know what we need, because we're facing the consequences when the external implementations of tips and on what to do are implemented. We face the consequences.
It kind of always feels like that, though. Even as somebody, as an outside viewer, it feels like no matter what happens, the Palestinians, like the people in the region themselves, face the consequences.
Yeah.
what do you think the role of people like yourself and people like you two, like not only obviously you're a peace actor, so you have your role, but also as Palestinian Israelis, so the only people who really are in both worlds is in, kind of fostering these healthy relationships and hopefully ending this conflict.
I'll give the floor to Ibrahim. I will say that we agree on this, but at the same time disagree on this.
Okay.
So I'll give the floor to Ibrahim to start, and then I'll talk.
Please.
I mean, in general, I think there is a sense of now or never for the peace activist community that the ship can be stirred both ways. It can either lead to more extremism, both from the Israeli and the Palestinian populations, or we can push it towards an understanding that we've had enough and we need change. And we said it before, and we said it on the podcast, that we do not, it doesn't mean that doves will be flying over Ramallah and Tel Aviv at the beginning. It can be also a very, very long time that it will. And that's okay. Having optimal peace is obviously something we would love, but we also need to understand that things need to happen in steps. That at least we need to provide for both sides security, to build their own state in peace, to grant security to both sides, and then slowly to start to flourish the relations. Where it comes from, and that's, I guess, part of where me and Amira sometimes differentiate on opinions is, for me, the role of the Arab 48. Because we are citizens, so we have the influence also to potentially be in government and influence things on the inside. And for me, we're the real mediators if we're looking for mediators, not the US. The US needs to help and put checks and balances and all these things. But we're the ones who see the world from both sides. But without having internal trust, because there's a bit of distrust as well inside Israel between the Arab and the Jewish community. And there is a feeling of, there isn't a mutual full recognition of both sides. And that needs to change from here. And if we feel that there is a partner, and that's what we talked about, the people of Gaza need to feel that there's a partner. If we in Israel, and we live together and we don't feel there's a partner, how can someone from Gaza feel that? So we need to build that sense of partnership here and convey it to the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem, and to start flourishing a different relationship that can foster real discussions and create two states, and then slowly but surely warming up the relations as well, because we don't need to live divided. I mean, that could happen in the beginning, and that could be our reality, but we can do even better, and we hope for better.
So my point is, I agree with almost everything that Ibrahim said. I think that that Arab Israelis or Palestinian Israeli citizens should be forefront and center when it comes to looking for solutions, joining the government, forming policy in order to influence the situation and the quality of life, at the very least, for Palestinians. However, I also want to stress on the importance of responsibility and accountability on the Israeli side, and also on the Palestinian side, but specifically on the Israeli side, with this argument of Ibrahim saying that Palestinian Israelis need to convey the message of there is a partner. There's also the message from the Palestinian end that's coming that if you're talking with Israelis, and if you shake hands with Israelis, then you're a collaborator and you're a normalizer. How are they going to trust you when you shook hands with the quote unquote enemy? So I think it doesn't just stop at Palestinian Israelis building themselves within Israeli society, but it also needs to change within Israel and how they treat Gazans and Palestinians all over the map. So if they see simultaneously that there's change, in first of all, if they see simultaneously what Ibrahim just said, that we are conveying that there is a partner, and at the same time they're seeing changes from this enemy, that they are turning into a partner, that's when they'll maybe look at things differently and not debunk Ibrahim and Arab Israelis as a whole, or Palestinian Israelis as a whole, as collaborators and normalizers. And so I think all of that needs, like, yes, and yes. It all needs to happen simultaneously. Without it happening simultaneously, we still have a problem, because that's what we have been seeing for years. The Israelis willing to change, the Palestinians not. The Palestinians willing to change, the Israelis not, and to certain degrees. So we need simultaneous, continuous change on all fronts, with good intentions.
The intentions of, like,
the intentions of a solution.
Yeah, solution.
Like it could be selfish intentions, but as long as these selfish intentions ensure recognizing and finishing up, like, the borders, and agreeing on borders, and agreeing on a Palestinian state, which we're talking about it as if it's really simple and easy to do, draw a line. But it's more complicated than that. I know, I'm not trying to simplify it. If it were that simple, we would have gotten towards a solution within 75 plus years. But that's what needs to happen. Like, we need to ensure that that's our highest priority, recognition.
It's gotten close. So, like, as you mentioned, like, it's not, people have to think it's impossible. It is not that.
Yeah, it's not impossible.
That feels like a good time to end this podcast. Ibrahim, Amira, thank you so much for coming on, educating the viewers and myself on what's kind of going on in the sort of Palestinian Israeli identity and all that. You can find their podcast, Unapologetic, the Third Narrative, I believe on all platforms.
Yes.
And there is a YouTube. But
there is a YouTube. We're very much invested in our Instagram.
Yes. Instagram is the primary place, posting clips, like, I want to say every day. So
trying to
5 days a week, got to
go. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having
thank you so much
on yours.
Oh, of course. Thank you for coming on.
We enjoyed the conversation as well.
Oh, I'm glad. I was pretty nervous. I was like, what am I gonna? I was like, I want to get, like, really good questions.
We've enjoyed it.
Thank you.